Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo, Scooby-Doo.
On this episode of the History of the Course podcast with Chris and Josh, we take a look at the Nailed Dead Risen band from Riverside, California, known as Impending Doom. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurvivedByPro for news and latest episode postings. And make sure to subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star review, and write us a comment on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're using. Make sure to check us out on TikTok and give us a follow at Is Survived By Productions. And if you'd like to see us do some live streams, leave us a comment or tweet us the keyword stream. Now, without further ado, let's start the show.
The devil is in Atlanta. Army surrounded.
When waters run deep, we will stand like mountains. I am for peace, but when I speak, it is for war.
Welcome back to the History of the Chorus podcast, sponsored by the one and only Church of the Seventh Track, where each and every episode we take a look at the history of a band from the core genre. I'm Curtis, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the mustached man himself, the Impending Doom loving Josh. What up, Josh?
Oh, not a whole lot.
You doomer.
A
Doom
doomer.
and gloom.
Doom, 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 doom.
Doom, 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 doom.
We were
doom,
talking
doom.
about how happy I was. I didn't have to cram myself into my tiny Impending Doom shirt that looks like the one behind you.
Disappointing, man. Disappointing.
Luckily, I was able to break out this bad boy. This is this is the shirt I got from so I've seen them many times, and kind of over the course of those first 4 albums, I guess. But this is the shirt that I got right after they released Baptized in Filth.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, this is
Let's
the front
see.
of it.
Yeah, show me the full
wanna-
thing. I can only see
Hold
Impending
on.
Doom. That's
I
it.
have to.
Show it off. Show it off. Oh, too close. Too close. Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
We got
Interesting.
like an upside down crow, and then there's like a couple of hearts like over
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And then the back says
Just turn around.
see if you can see it.
I am a murderer, wash me clean. Oh my gosh.
And so the back of the shirt just has massive on the back. It just says, "I am a murderer."
Somebody just comes up behind you and starts cleaning you with soap. What are you doing? I'm cleaning you.
This is
Oh.
during the era of like other shirts that I would wear. Okay, I had one for The World We Knew that the front of it just said in massive letters, "You look like shit."
I remember you. Yeah, I remember you having that. Nice.
Just stuff like that.
So besides the tube top, is that the only other Impending Doom shirt you have?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other one is from
He doesn't have a tube top, people. It's a joke.
It's just so
I
small. It's like
hope
a
not.
youth large or something. Yeah, and the front just has like the logo like that, but it is
behind me.
white shirt with blue writing,
Oh,
and the back says, "I hope I scare the hell out of you." And
okay.
that was from the first album, Nailed Dead Risen. So
Okay. Nails to the dead to the risen. Okay. I said nails to the dead to the risen. Yeah. Cool, man. Cool. Well,
and
before
every
we get
song
in,
sounds like that.
exactly. They should have gotten like Toby Mac to cover Impending Doom songs. That probably what it would end up being. All kind of like hip hoppy kind of. Anyway, so before we start talking about Impending Doom, Let's talk about what we listened to this week. Josh, go ahead and start us off.
I would love to. It
Come on, time is
is
money.
here somewhere. There it is. All right.
Oh, what the heck?
So I got a couple goodies here.
Okay.
On my right here, that is going to be "You Fail Me." These are both Converge.
Okay.
Um,
That name sounded familiar. You failed me. So, okay.
yeah, both Converge. The one over here is "You Fail Me," and the one behind me
So
here is
Jane Doe.
"Axe to Fall."
Dang,
No, 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 not Jane
darn.
Doe.
I've seen Jane Doe before, but I can't remember. Yeah.
It's like forward facing.
That's why
It's
I
a
was thinking
woman.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, And God, dude, Converge is one of those bands that has some really good album art, like some really
Yeah.
creepy stuff. Yeah, they've got some good stuff. Uh, you Fail Me. As I was listening to a couple of the other albums, I was really thinking that this is where Converge starts to really find their sound. And I guess even before this, because Jane Doe was before this. Yeah, no. So Jane Doe was the one I was thinking about. Where like I feel like that's where they really start finding that sound.
Say, I
Um,
feel like that's all you ever talk about with Converge is Jane Doe, Jane Doe, Jane Doe, Jane Doe. I mean, you talk about
it's the
others, but
album.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
the
the
album.
standard.
They're a lot like Zayo, dude. Like when you're listening through the catalog, it's like some of the early stuff. It's like, what is this?
What is
But
happening?
yeah, but they get a few in, and yeah, you start getting ones like Jane Doe, You Fail Me. Um, just a couple of the tracks off of You Fail Me. Obviously, Eagles Become Vultures. That song stands out so much on the album. Like, I don't know if you've ever listened to this one through,
Mm.
but it's like I don't know what happens. Like the rest of the album is really good, and there's some really strong songs on there. Um, oh, it's the other one's the title track. You Fail Me.
Oh, okay.
That the beginning guitar is just so raw. There is no I thought you'd appreciate this. There is nothing more satisfying than listening to a shitty, cheap instrument be played passionately and well by someone.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, you know that guy's setup with the guitar and strings didn't cost more than like $120.
Yep.
So you can definitely hear it. You know, I mean that's the thing about Converge. Like they had to deal with First Act forever. Like,
Yeah.
and if you know anything about guitars, First Act is lowest of low.
I was gonna say, isn't that like the Walmart guitar brand?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
know
Yep.
they
Yep. Yep.
definitely carried First Acts for a
Yep.
while.
That's immediately what I was thinking of when you started talking about the guitars. I was
I
like,
had
first
one
act,
for a
first act,
while.
first act. Yeah.
Like that
I
was
remember
further
that.
down the line, but I when I found one, I snatched it up because I wanted one so bad. Because of
Say if
bands
you
like this, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you can find a first act, go ahead and get it if you appreciate music like this because yeah, you can beat the crap out of that thing.
It'll take a beating.
Yeah, it'll take a beating, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Ever since you said Zayo, I just got a tool to scream stuck in my head now, over and over and over and over and over.
Oh.
I don't know why. I think that's the last song I heard from them, maybe last week or whatever. Anyway, yeah, yeah.
um, and I don't want to get too much into Converge here because we'll have a
I'll
Converge
say that's
episode at
coming
some
up.
point
Yeah.
for sure. And then you're gonna say, you know, if you're a big Converge guy, you're gonna say, Josh, why'd you put Axe to Fall on there? Why'd you do that? Because that album is amazing. And you don't have to just stick to the early Converge albums. This one was one that I feel like a lot of people that I knew who were big Converge people just talk shit all over. And this album
Is it
is
a newer one?
it was 3 years after You Fail Me.
Okay.
I mean, most people though are going to go to Jane Doe. That's going to be
Yeah,
the
bread and
album
butter.
for most people.
Yeah.
Um, but Axe to Fall has some really amazing stuff on it. They do some things that they haven't really done up to that point, and I think that's probably why it gets a lot of criticism. Um, but yeah, the Wishing Well, dude, the opener in Wishing Well where he plays it with the bow is
Ooh,
so
nice.
good. Like I'm sure you know
Nice.
that track.
Yeah. No, I don't, but I know the technique that you're talking about though.
Yeah, sounds so good. But these are two that
Nice.
I would recommend. I feel like they're pretty. These are gateway points for sure.
Okay.
To get into a band
Yeah.
like Converge. So
Cool. Cool, man. Cool.
on to you before I talk about Converge
Uh,
all day.
yeah. So I spent my time this week listening to Impending Doom because I wanted to focus
Boo,
all my
cheap,
energy. No, hold
cheap.
on, hold on now. I want to, well, I mean, what do you
So
want
did
me to
I.
do?
Should
Just
I pull up the slide that has
no,
three more albums on it?
no, but as well as I do, this was more of a challenge for me this week to really focus in on Impending Doom and not worry about anything else and figure out how I truly feel about this band. You know
For
what I'm
sure,
saying?
for sure.
So that's when I was like, okay, I'm everything else getting blocked out. I'm focusing on these three albums. But I did make time for, and I sent this to you, and I wanted to talk about it just briefly. Um, we have Better Lovers with Jordan Buckley from Every Time I Die, along with Goose and Mitchie on bass. Um,
They haven't released
now
anything though, have they?
they got an EP at least. I think they're working on a full length.
Okay.
But now we've got Keith Buckley's new band. It's called Many Eyes, and I believe the song was called Revolution. They just released it this either this past week or the week before. Um, I wanted to get your thoughts on it because you listened to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my thinking. I liked it. I felt like he never really lost a step lyrically and vocally. Um, Interesting to hear him sing more though. That was kind of interesting. I liked it. Um, I kind of get radical vibes. I feel like he's kind of like still on that timeline there, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah, I just feel like he didn't really lose a step, and I like the music or the instrument section overall too. So I was kind of curious to hear more later on when they release more stuff. So what'd you think?
My very first thought was, and I like it. Well, I'll say that, like I do like it.
Yeah,
But my very first thought was, oh, it's Every Time I Die Light.
true. Yeah, I
Like
can
this
see
is
that.
the diet version.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
The
it
go ahead.
it just didn't feel as full bodied, and it
No, yeah,
also didn't feel like I do like the arrangements and the stuff, but when you really cut through and listen to it, it sounds very mechanical. Like
okay.
these guys sound like I don't know, it's not hitting the same way that Every Time I Die does.
Well, for one, there's only three guys in it. That's including Keith.
Okay,
So
that's a problem.
I'm guessing one of them is just the drummer, and then the other guy's probably doing all the guitars and bass, or whatever.
Yeah,
There
that's
may
a
be some
problem
sharing upon that. Yeah.
because the
The other thing,
guitar section is lacking.
yeah. Well, the other thing too is like when we know what we had for all those years with with Keith and Jordan and Steve and the many drummers that came throughout. And what was the other guy's name? I can never remember what his name is. The guy that I said you look like for a while there because he went bald. But big beard, guitarist, big
Oh, yeah.
mustache,
I don't remember his name.
the butcher. That's all I know him as
Yeah.
now. Anyway, um,
Andy something?
Andy. Yep, Andy something. Um, yeah, it's just like it's hard not to hear Keith Buckley and like hear music behind him that's like heavy like that. And I don't know. It's hard not to think about them not being there. It
Mhm.
to me that's the part that's kind of like, it just doesn't feel the same in that way. You
It
know,
sounded like he's the vocalist for He Is Legend now.
interesting. I'll have to think about that when I go back and listen
Like
to it again.
musically, there were some parts that I was like, oh, this is just Few. Like this is
Hmm,
the album Few.
interesting.
Yeah,
It's
but
not over yet.
I did like it. I I kind of like at the end how because he has a couple tracks where like he throws a couple words over like the end of ringing out guitar at the end of a
Mhm.
song. In Every Time I Die. I liked how he did that in this. Um, I was confused. I thought the song was called Fuck Off. So,
Because he said so much.
oh yeah.
I laughed because like the first person in the YouTube comment section said something about like, all right, it's time to overanalyze the lyrics and make them sound like it's like a diss track to the rest of the band or whatever. It's like, yeah, okay. So yeah,
I thought
you think
that
it
I
is?
mean, uh, I don't know, but I had the thought. I
Yeah,
was, kind of listening to see if I felt like it linked up, or anything, but I
yeah.
don't
Who
know.
knows though, man.
Yeah.
Cool. All righty. Well, enough chit chat, Josh. Let's get to talking. Let's get to business. To the
Can
business,
I
bro.
can I get your
No.
head right for this who we're going to be talking about?
What do you mean?
So, I've got a article here from No Clean Singing, and
Okay.
this is just a little tidbit here that they wrote about their experience out seeing um, Impending Doom
Impending
for the
Doom.
first time. Yeah.
Okay. Let's hear it. What year was this?
2007,
Okay.
2008?
So,
No, 2009.
okay, so you're talking about Serpent time.
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
It was in a crappy little club in Portland that I hadn't been, that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since Ronald Reagan was president.
Okay,
The
stop.
whole,
This sounds like some 50s movie narrator, like some noir movie or something.
all right, give it I'll try something different here.
Yeah,
It was in a crappy little club in Portland that looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the Ronald Reagan was president. The whole
yeah.
place was scarred and every surface was sticky. It was pretty full, which
Ew.
didn't take a lot. There was hardly any room to move. That night, Impending Doom owned that place. The performance was explosive, and the performers had magnetic stage presence.
Okay. Okay.
This is how I've always seen Impending Doom. Very small venue setting, close quarters, them going nuts, everybody else going nuts.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't be able to see them. I don't know. Kane's Ballroom too big for you?
Yeah, it's a little
Okay.
big
That's
for
what I was thinking. I was thinking
I
maybe a little smaller than that.
I saw them one time at the other side, and that was almost too big.
Yeah, but that's a little bigger. Or not. Well, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I could see that. They're more of an intimate band. Definitely in tune with their fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in tune. We're in tune. Cool.
And Curtis, I'm gonna make a statement here. And
Stayed away.
I mean it totally as just a compliment. But
Well,
if
thank you.
you see any metal metalcore, deathcore, hardcore band, that has a guitarist of Native American or Hispanic descent, you better look the hell out. You better watch out
Crazy?
because they have some of the gnarliest shit. And I don't know what they, what their technique is here, but I feel like I could throw many examples at you of.
Please give me one, at least one.
I'm pretty sure Turnstile does. Um, you have now I'm drawing a blank. Oh, and Suicide Silence. Um, I think Misha from Periphery is. Please let that be right. Yeah,
Oh
I'm gonna
boy.
just stop guessing on
Yeah, this
people's.
is yeah. Do yourself a favor.
But I feel like that's if you ever see that, it's a good sign.
A good sign of what though? I didn't if you're showing me something I didn't
Oh,
see it.
just some dirty riffs,
Oh, okay. I was
just
like, what?
some brutal stuff.
Okay. Wonder what that is. What's in them? What's in their culture that brings it out on the guitar? Interesting. Okay.
For West
Okay.
Coast
Mhm.
hardcore, I think it was just a regional thing. There's higher populations in those areas. And so I think your like odds are just better that like people are good,
Mm.
you're
Yeah.
more likely to, in a group of five guys that come together, you're more likely to have someone of ethnicity rather than in the middle of the country where it might just be five white guys.
You five white guys for the win.
That's a band, five white guys.
Five white guys.
That's a
Cool.
lot of
Well, let's
bands.
let's stop. Let's just go. Let's get into it, Josh. You want to?
Take me away.
Because I know you're just dying to hear what I have to say. Okay, genres. Tell me if you agree. Deathcore, Christian metal.
Yes, and I also found another one where they referred to themselves as Goreship.
Goreship. Yep. I was getting to that one. Self-described Goreship. Brooke Reeves, the lead vocalist, described Goreship as, quote, worshiping God through our gore sounding music. It's like, okay, alrighty. The group has named bands as influences to their sound, such as Deftones, Korn, Slipknot, Lamb of God, Meshuggah, Nine Inch Nails, Radiohead, Metallica, Napalm Death, Cannibal Corpse, As They Lay Dying, The Acacia Strain, Under Oath, Living Sacrifice, and so many more. Does that sound about right, Josh?
Yes, and I am glad that they credited As I Lay Dying because they pull pretty heavily musically from them,
Mm-hmm.
especially in
Mm-hmm.
There Will Be Violence.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
remember
Mm-hmm.
what year There Will Be Violence was, but I want to say that it right around the time Ocean Between Us came out.
I think so, because what was Oceans Between Us? Was that no? Oh, 09 was Ocean Between Us. Violence came out in 11.
Okay. Well, then that makes even more sense.
Yeah. Um, yeah. We'll talk about that because I definitely noticed that. And there is a connection to As They Lay Dying too. So we'll talk about that here in a moment.
Okay.
Okay, formed in 2005 in Riverside, California by Manny Contreras on guitar and Brooke Reeves on vocals. The duo would be joined by Chris Forno on guitar and Isaac Bueno on drums. And those drums are muy bueno. As the band would start to write songs and develop their sound. Yes? Oh, you look like you had something to say. Okay.
Where are they from?
Riverside, California.
Oh, this is all just validating everything I said.
All right. Validation.
Validation.
Yeah, you've been validated. Shortly before a demo release, the quartet would recruit John Alfaro on bass, and together they would form Impending Doom. Dun, dun, dun. And their first demo release is from 2005, titled The Sin and Doom of Godless Men. Now, this is actually going to be the only recording to feature guitarist Chris Forno and Isaac Bueno on drums, and John Alfaro on bass. So, let's get it started right. Let's just go ahead and kick a bunch of guys out that, we just decided we can't be friends anymore. I don't know. Now, this 2005 demo contained 5 songs: Condemned, For All Have Sinned, Hell's Holocaust, Patience and Suffering, and the finale, In Reverence Of. Now, 3 of those 5 songs are going to be re-recorded and put on their next album, their debut album. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. Those 3 songs are In Reverence Of, Condemned, and For All Have Sinned. Quickly, I just want to say that it's raw. I mean, it's a demo, it's raw, but it's not the demo that I would usually suspect, where it's, again, we've talked about this before, about like, oh, there's only like 1 or 2 mics and they're all just kind of gathered around it, or wherever. You can tell that this was at least done in like a home studio with
It's put
decent
together.
equipment. It's put together for sure. But at the same time, you can tell that it's something new from a band, something to start out. So did you have anything to say on this demo, Josh? Before I
I
moved
mean, I
on.
think it's brutal as hell. Condemned. I love the guitar part at the very beginning and just how it like holds off. Dun dun
Mhm.
dun dun, and then they go into it.
Before the departures of their rhythm guitarist, bassist, and drummer, there was a brief time where the band had 3 guitarists, as Greg Puthers would join the band. So that's kind of
Oh, that
interesting to
always
have 3
that always
guitarists,
goes
man.
so hard.
Right, man.
Whitechapel did that for the longest time. I don't know if they still do it, but they had 3 guitarists forever.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
Dude,
Greg,
you never have that problem that I talk about all the time where it feels like your guitars are lacking. Like it feels like there's like some emptiness there. With 3 guys, there's always just like this force driving
I was supposed
everything.
to say, you would think at a certain point be like, okay, 3 is probably too much, but no, it doesn't. I mean, it's just like in your face.
Yeah.
See, very early Maylene. So,
Yeah. It's amazing. We briefly had 3 guitarists in Carcass of a Carnivore, and that was always like so cool. But yeah, we
brutal.
added John Brashear for a little while.
Nice. Cool, man. But like I said, that's not going to last very long at all, unfortunately. Would have been cool to see, like,
Oh,
to get a
oh,
whole album of that. That'd be kind of cool.
yeah.
Greg Puthers on guitar would replace Chris Forner, bringing the band back to 2 guitarists. John Alfaro on bass would be replaced by David Satig, and Isaac Bueno on drums would be replaced by Andy Hegg. Now, the band planned on releasing an EP of re-recordings of all 5 songs off of their demo album, but before they decided to do that, Face Down Records would take notice of the band's demo album and would quickly sign them, changing the plans of the band and the future as they knew it. Because in 2007, Josh, we get Nailed to the Dead to the Risen from Face Down Records, that little album right behind you. Produced by Christopher Eck, this is the only album for Andy Hegg on drums and Greg Puthers on guitar, and the first for David Satig on bass. Like I said earlier, this features 3 re-recordings from the band's demo album, and it reached number 46 on the Billboard's Top Heat Seekers chart.
This week at number 46, Impending Doom with their song Nailed, Dead, Risen.
And it just comes in with that Nailed, Dead, Risen. Oh God, what's happening?
And she writes in, "Dear Casey, aren't you dead?"
John Wolford of JesusFreakHideout.com wrote in his review of the album, quote, Impending Doom is one of the latest in a never-ending series of metal bands seeking to make an impact in both the Christian and secular industries. Signed to Face Down Records, they released their debut album, the dramatically titled Nailed, Dead, Risen, in 2007. Unfortunately, they've done little to distinguish themselves from the pack, despite a respectable place on the Billboard Top Heat Seekers chart upon the initial album drop. Brutality is the focus of this project. Oh boy, yep. So much so that it actually begins to hinder the album's integrity as a work of art, losing its way and eventually trailing off into a series of recycled riffs and tired breakdowns. The first couple of tracks demanded my attention because of their sheer heaviness, but after that, I quickly lost interest and ironically found myself turning down the volume so that it would serve as, quote, background music until I traded it for something with a little more variety. Bass? Check. Drums? Check. Odd time structures? Check. Every element in this project has been used to the point of cliche, and the unoriginality comes to the forefront when the album is compared to other thrash and death metal compositions. As their name suggests, Impending Doom deals in dark biblical imagery, most of it a part of the apocalyptic variety, set to a soundtrack of shrieks, guttural wails, and painful howls that, for lack of better descriptor, sound like unto a pig's snorting. Nice. They take themselves so seriously that this reviewer found it hard not to roll his eyes at some of the turns of phrase incorporated throughout the project. Lyrics like, we'll crush the walls that dictate where our ministry goes. This is our church. This is our worship. Gorship. The emphasis is theirs. The members of Impending Doom, or otherwise known as ID, define gorship as worship of God set to gore sounding music. While I'm not exactly sure what that incurs, it's obvious that these gentlemen aren't going to back down from what they feel is their calling. What will better serve them in the future is more attention to detail in both production, which here is dodgy at best, and songwriting. Now he's going to go on to finish review by saying, quote, Impending Doom have potential as a collective of talented metal musicians, but they've yet to find their own unique voice, both literally and figuratively. To put it simply, this is a group of extraordinary artists trapped in a poorly arranged band. Their sophomore effort will most probably be the determining factor in whether or not they manage to make a notable impact in an industry that is becoming more and more receptive to the hardcore genre. Josh, yay or nay?
I I disagree with them like I do about all of these reviews, I feel
I
like.
know. That's why I'm getting you to talk. Let me ask you something
Um,
real quick.
yeah,
Is this your favorite Impending Doom album?
no,
Okay. Is it top three? I mean, I know there's not much, but
yes.
is it top two? Is it number two?
Mm, I don't know. It would be three. It would be top three or four.
Okay. Hmm.
Serpent Servant is my favorite
Your
album.
favorite. That's a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that's a
Oh,
good one.
it's fantastic.
I was gonna say
Um,
that's probably my favorite out of these three in this block. Is
yeah,
Serpent Servant.
it's really good. Like
Yeah.
they take everything they were already doing and then just added another level to it. Have you really listened to any Advocate?
No, I just
Okay,
know the band.
having listened to Serpent Servant, you should listen to either Advocate album, it doesn't matter. And I
They only
think
have
you'll
two.
feel yes, they have an
Okay.
EP and they have a full length. They might have another full length out now. I haven't seen.
Okay.
Um, but very like that's a band that decided, okay, Serpent Servant, that album, that's what we're gonna do. Like that's gonna be our music style. So it's very, very similar. I think you'd like it.
Okay. I'll have to try it out.
Um, the first half of the album doesn't hit me as hard as from Nailed Dead Risen on. Like it feels like from there, then we really start picking up some steam.
Okay.
Um, I just think okay, so this album is 2007, but the EP comes
Yeah.
out in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, there's not really a whole lot of people out there doing the pig squeal inhale vocals game, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I remember popping in that first Job for a Cowboy album, Doom, the Doom EP,
2006. Yeah. Or five. No, that was
and
2005, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And that just blowing my fucking mind, dude. Um, and yeah, there were bands out there doing it. Like it was starting to come around, but there weren't many. And these guys already have their shit together by the time they do this EP. Like it sounds like a really low budget EP, but like you said, like the structure's all there and you can hear that everybody knows exactly what they're doing. This is all very structured. It's all put together really well. These are great musicians. And I'm sorry that this guy wanted to hear some hits on this one, but I
Give me
don't
the
think he
hits.
came to the right genre for that. It all just sounds the same. It's like, yes, the same fucking album, bro. And it's in a genre that, you know, if we're being honest, a lot of songs do end up sounding relatively familiar or similar. Um, and especially if you don't have a decent musical ear, like a lot of this kind of music, be it, Christian metal or just regular deathcore, it's a little more geared towards musicians because that's who appreciates what's happening more. Um, and so yeah, I hate these kind of reviews. Like I feel like we rarely read one that's positive about any of the albums
Yeah. I
of
mean,
any
there's some
band.
that, well, I mean, there's always, everybody's got pros and cons, it seems like, to everything that they review. But a lot of times, yeah, it's like the negatives seem to stand out more. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna tell you straight up. This is out of the three that we're listening to in this episode, this is my least favorite. Um, I'm just, back in the day when we were in high school and we listened to stuff like Job for a Cowboy, Whitechapel, All Shot Paris, and all stuff like that. And there was some big squeals in some of those bands, especially like Job for a Cowboy and such. Yeah, I was into it back then, but I'm just not into like the pig squeals anymore. And there's a lot of pig squeals on this album. And I'm not saying like it turned me off. It was just like, okay. I just wasn't, it was just not for me, you know.
Yeah.
And now I will say that after digging deeper into their history and reading some interviews and different stuff with the band members, I will give them that they are very, it's kind of like what the reviewer said. I mean, they're very like intent on like, this is what we believe and we're putting it out there and we don't care what you think, you know, and we're going to do it the way that we want to do it. And that's cool. And I commemorate that. Um, I lost my train of thought.
They've
I think
always
there was
been
a,
really cool. Like I talked to them a
yeah,
couple times at different shows and they've always been really cool.
I think there
I
was a
think I
point
traded
too.
one of my shirts one time
Oh,
for
nice.
that Impending Doom shirt.
I think there was somewhere where like they've come out several times and like told people it's like, look, this is not like a joke. Like this isn't like what we're doing isn't like satire or anything. We're Christians. We know what we believe, but at the same time, we like this musical style and we're going to play it and we're going to put our beliefs into that. And I think it kind of goes back to like what I've always kind of said to her. It's kind of like, this is just, I don't know, it's just kind of weird to see, Christian like themes and deathcore and just like trying to put them together, but they make it work in the end, you know?
But
Um,
there's a million bands out there that do that, you know?
but in like deathcore though,
I mean,
it's one thing to say like as I lay dying, but I don't see them as deathcore though.
yeah.
Or even "Oh Sleeper," that's not deathcore. Or even you had said to me one time, you're like, I think when we were doing Zayo, you're like, well, if you like Zayo, you should like, Impending Doom, whatever. It's like, yeah, but they're not the same thing.
I mean, the only difference is the vocal style, essentially. The music is like heavier, I guess.
Yeah, but they've got more, especially like Impending Doom's got more like blast beats, that like signature kind of deathcore stuff, you know?
Yeah. I don't
I'm
know.
not hating I'm not hating
I
on
know.
that,
I just struggle to see why, like, I don't know why, like, it's got to be such a big deal to just people in general. Because, like, I don't know, it's a type of music. It doesn't have to be associated with like somebody who has lyrics like Cannibal Corpse or something.
No,
Like,
yeah.
it's literally just the musical side of that. And if you wanted to start a band and push your values, but like that was the music that you liked and that you wanted to play, that's what you enjoyed, like why not put the two together? Because
Yeah.
without like demonic lyrics, there's nothing demonic about the style of vocals or the music.
Yeah. No, and that's what I'm saying. Is like I doing more of a deep dive to get ready for these two episodes. You know, I have more appreciation for them. It's still a little confusing to me. Mainly just on this album. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna
Get
tell you
over
these.
it.
No, let me tell you these next two albums. I love these next two albums, dude. I love. I think the one of the things is, I mean, they don't. They dropped the pig squeal deal, which is whatever. I don't care about that.
And
It's not
most
like, all
bands
right, no
did
more pig squeals.
transition
Yeah.
out of that.
Yes,
Like
but
Job for a Cowboy got away from that after like one album. There was a little bit on Genesis, but
yeah, but I see, especially on these next two albums, and we kind of already kind of hinted at it. There's a lot of like "As I Lay Dying" kind of draw in their
yes.
sound. It feels like, and especially like his vocal style and everything like that, which is cool because I love "As I Lay Dying." You know. But anyway, back to what my point was. I have more of appreciation for, they're very passionate about what they believe in, and I'm cool with, the whole, doing it in the style that you want to. It's just always going to be there for me, especially off of this album. Just kind of like, it just doesn't seem right, man. And like I said, I think it's funny that they've kind of hinted over the years of like, look, this isn't a joke. What we're doing is, it's not satire. It's not a joke. This is really what we are, and what we believe. And when, again, like you said, it's like people think deathcore, they think, oh, demonic stuff and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing. And that's, we like this genre, but we also love this, and we're gonna mash them together, you know. So I don't know. I did a lot of soul searching this week, Josh. A lot of soul searching. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
mean, they have this EP and they have Nail Dead Risen. And those are kind of, I mean, that was
they're
the
in their
sound
own kind
in
of,
the
yeah.
beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then Serpent Servant is really like a breakout point for them, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. I agree.
That's where this starts to shift in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, I agree. Songs on Nail Dead Risen include "Left Behind," "My Nemesis," "In Reverence of," "The Mark of the Faithful," "Nailed Dead Risen," "Condemned," "At the Church's End," "Silence the Oppressors," "For All Have Sinned," "Feeding the Decomposing," and "He is Coming Back." Any final thoughts on Nailed Dead Risen, Josh?
did you like all the screaming and he's coming back?
Right? It's like, what's happening?
Oh
What's
my
happening?
God. That's pretty brutal.
Oh
It's pretty
man, like,
brutal. Oh, that makes me think. Okay, so before we put this to bed, Curtis, and we move on to Serpent Servant and talk about these next couple albums. You got to admit, these things come together a little bit when you think about it, because when I had this thought listening to "He's Coming Back" the other day, and thinking to myself, man, this is brutal. Like that's pretty brutal. Like the vocals, the screaming and the music and the whole message there and everything. And then I sparked an idea in my head that the two go together well because religion is also brutal.
Well, and that's something I've thought about a lot recently is like there's a lot of people in like religion that think it's all going to end so like happy and everybody's holding hands and it's all going to be great in the end. It's like, no, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And I don't think you understand um, what's coming because there's a lot of people do there like I don't remember what they're titled as, but there's a lot of people that believe like in Christianity that like in the apocalypse or in the end or whatever end times or whatever it's going to be like, oh well, we're everything's going to be great. And it's like, no, it all ends. I don't want to say it all ends badly, but just like it's not what a lot of people think it's going to be. I feel like there's yeah, I mean it's kind of built on blood and violence. I don't know, man. It's just a lot darker
Yeah, I mean it's
than
all built on
you
blood
know.
and violence. That was the other thing. I was like, oh yeah, it's like the Crusades were like really brutal.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like just
Well, and
like
that's
kind
the
of
other
going
thing.
down the line,
Yeah,
you know. It's like,
that's the other
oh
thing
yeah.
too. Is
I was
like,
like, brutal metal. Like,
yeah. I mean, everybody just thinks like religiously is just like happy and rainbows and bunnies and unicorns and such, and it's not that way, man. I mean, it's a dark history,
a lot of blood.
and it's a dark future. So anyway, was that it? Anything else?
Nope, that was it. It
I mean, I
just
get what you're
my
saying, and
random
that's
thought that I was
and
like, oh
that's
man,
kind of was like,
religion's pretty brutal too.
yeah. I mean, like listening to that and just like hearing the screams and the wails, it's like, oh man, this is some truth right here, man. So, alrighty, Andy Hegg on drums would leave the band to fulfill a college soccer scholarship. It's funny because I'm laughing at that because me and Eric were just talking about Comeback Kids, one of their members, um, leaving to pursue a culinary career in South Africa. It was like, what the heck? So random.
I
And
vaguely remember that.
I forgot about this one where he wanted to leave to fulfill a college soccer scholarship. It's like, what? What? This guy that played drums on Nail Dead Risen is going to play soccer? Okay. The band would employ Chad Blackwell on drums for touring support for their debut album, but he would eventually join the band full time. What was that about?
Did you listen all the way through to he is coming back?
Yeah,
The
I
part where he
listened to the
starts
full
like
album.
fucking around and stuff.
Is that after like the blank space? Because I know there was
Yes.
something about like some outtakes or whatever.
Yeah. It was like him
Yeah,
in the studio.
yeah,
He's like, listen up, you scumbags.
right. Huh? Me? Greg Puthers on guitar would leave the band and rejoin his earlier band Oblige, formerly known as the Devastated. He would be replaced by Corey Johnson, formerly of Sleeping Giants. I want to throw something out at you, Josh, just real quick for nostalgia and see if you remember this. MySpace Street Teams. That's
Oh yeah.
MySpace Street Teams. Bring back some nostalgia for you because
I
I
mean,
had
I
forgotten all
guess I
about that, man.
remember them, but
Yeah, well, that's all I'm saying is like I have forgotten about it until I was doing my notes and was like, oh shoot, I forgot all about those. Not that I was ever like involved in them or whatever. It's just I remember seeing that. I was like, yeah, simpler times.
right, yeah.
Yeah. All right, Josh, let's talk about 2009's The Serpent Servant from Face Down Records. Here is your As They Lay Dying connection, Josh. The album was produced by Tim Lambesis and his partner, Daniel Castleman. This album reached number 3 on the Billboard Top Heat Seekers chart. Coming in at number 3 this week, it's that old Impending Doom band with Serpent Servants. This album sold 4,300 copies in its first week alone, Josh. Pretty good.
I was
Pretty
about to
good.
be like, that's not very many. I thought you were going to say that's total. I was like, what?
Total 4,300 copies in total.
Like it says
Ah,
they have
crap.
89,000 monthly listeners. Like,
Where are those people at? Buy the album. Yeah. First album for Corey Johnson on guitar, and the only album for Chad Blackwell on drums, and the last album before Manny Contreras on guitar would leave briefly from the band. He would return later on. We'll talk about that here after a while, or maybe in the next episode. I can't remember. He'll come back. He's coming back. He's coming back.
ah!
David from indievisionmusic.com reviewed the band's sophomore album, stating, quote, the second the CD starts, you can already hear how the band has improved. That's good. That's good. Tim Lambesis of As I Lay Dying notoriety, has done an incredible job with their sound, taking their near sonic mess from before and turning it into a solid, articulate, and precise masterpiece. But wait, they didn't record it themselves, so they didn't improve. The thing is, the fact they chose to go with Tim and record is an improvement on its own. Instead of recording with an engineer that may know what they're doing, but would have gone with a more raw feel, they went down the more polished route. And with the material they wrote this time around, that's exactly what they needed. There's no more of the jumbled guitar parts or breeze that everyone seemed to love. And honestly, I'm glad. That's what kept me from truly getting into them before. And I know there's a lot of others that felt the same. Vocally, as I mentioned before, there are no more pig squeals or anything of the like. Instead, frontman Brooke Reeves assaults you with a voice that will leave you feeling like you are nothing more than a speck of dust compared to him. It's so powerful and commanding that you have to listen, merely for that fact alone. The first thing I thought of is he almost sounds like the Christian birthchild of vocalist Guy Kozowitz from the Red Chord and Phil Bozeman of Whitechapel. Definitely not a bad thing in my book. Also, compared to his previous vocal endeavors, and in relation to my comparisons, he is a lot more understandable. So that alone should hopefully attract more people that were turned off from the bree whore breeze from before. Doesn't hurt to actually hear the lyrics right. David continues on to say, quote, all the guitar and even bass parts are very punctual and individual instead of merging together into a headache of a mess, and you can't help but feel attacked by their sheer brutality. It's what I've been waiting for in the Christian music scene ever since I first listened to Whitechapel. Great band musically, but their lyrics are pure filth and ruin what would be a good band. Oh boy. Don't expect any crazy solos or lead parts. You're on mute. Or lead parts just because Tim Lambesis is at the helm. This is still Impending Doom, and that's not a side of them I'll ever expect to see. Although former drummer Andy Hegg has been replaced by newcomer Chad Blackwell, the ferocity and speed that won me over in the first place has returned, and even stronger than before. There's plenty of blast beats and halftime parts to make any metal fan happy. But not a single song has any sloppy drumming. It's all executed so proficiently, and once again, thanks to Lambesis Studios, the quality is nothing but top notch and brings out the drums to a new level that you can't help but think, holy crap, this sounds good. True, we live in a world where drum machines run wild and free and love to make their homes in the most generic of metal albums. But talk to anyone who has seen this band live, and they'll tell you Impending Doom doesn't need programming to sound good. But with the time and quality put into all of the other musical departments, it would feel wrong not to give that sound and quality to the drums as well. He finishes by saying, quote, the servant will do nothing to convert you to metal if you're not a fan already. And if you're expecting it to, you'll be sorely disappointed. But if you're like me, a fan of Whitechapel and Meshuggah, waiting for a Christian band to enter into those forbidden territories, you'll find yourself very pleased with a well-crafted metal album that won't be leaving your CD player anytime soon. And I realize this score may seem ludicrous to some, and I was very hesitant to give it, but I can't express enough how much I have enjoyed this album and how long awaited it's been in the Underoath / As I Lay Dying ripoff infested Christian scene. Josh, what did you think of 2009's Serpent Servant from Face Down Records?
I definitely purchased all three of these albums. Well, three of these albums, Nail Dead Risen, Serpent Servant, and Baptized in Filth, all at a Christian bookstore. So,
Awkward.
Yeah.
The looks he got
I still
when he
remember
said,
asking for Baptized in
"Sir,
Filth.
I'm looking for Impending Doom's new album. It's called Baptized in Filth. I know you have it here.
I know you have it.
Don't lie to
Give it to
me."
me. This is my favorite Impending Doom album. It long has been. This is the one that I break out.
Okay.
It's been heavy rotation since 2009, be it by CD or streaming.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
yeah, this is one that was in my car a lot. This is Impending Doom at its finest. We're somewhere in between the style of Nail Dead Risen and There Will Be Violence and Baptized in Filth, kind of where we go with those. And that's why, it's one of the reasons I always talk about Advocate is it's a whole band or it's a band that based their entire sound like around this album. So it sounds, I'm not going to say that was what they were trying to do, but if you love this album, you will love Advocate.
Okay.
This would be one that would be hard for me to pick some favorites on. When Waters Run Deep is one of the hardest
that's a great
intros to an
man,
album.
Yeah.
So good. Anything Goes, Serpent Servant, More Than Conquerors. The video from More Than Conquerors is exactly what I'm looking for in any music video. I don't want some stupid story going on that you get to see the band for like 2 seconds or where they play characters in the video. I don't give a shit about that. I want to see a band in like a live type setting with everybody going crazy. They're going crazy. It's hard as hell.
I was right though. I had 2 out of 3 correct about that music video. The black sleeveless shirt and the long hair headbanging in a circle. There just was no effects, video effects. So, which is cool. That's fine. I'm not saying I want that.
They do use some pretty heavy video effects. I think you would have checked all your boxes if you'd watched the video for God, what was it?
Is it like Murder or something like that?
No, I think it's Silence the Oppressors.
Okay.
It's off the first album, yeah.
Okay.
That one would have checked all your boxes, I think.
Yeah. Okay, songs on this album include some of the ones Josh already mentioned here: When Waters Run Deep, The Serpent Servant, Anything Goes, Storming the Gates of Hell, Welcome to Forever, More Than Conquerors, Revival America, In the House of Mourning, When I Speak, City of Refuge, and the finale Beginnings. Definitely. Were you done? I'm sorry, I may have cut you off. Were you done talking about what you felt?
They're good. They're all good.
In quotes.
I don't have a single bad thing to say about this album. With Nail Dead Rising, I said the first half of the album is a little bit lacking.
Yeah.
It does pick up speed, but Serpent Servant, if it's been on rotation for me for 14 years, I think you're doing something right.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. Definitely, you can definitely tell it's more polished. It's more defined. It's not over polished. I don't feel like they went to the studio and went too wild with it. No. I felt like they stuck to their roots, but they just got better quality out of a better producer. No offense to Christopher Eck. Which is funny because they end up going back to Christopher Eck, I think, later in their discography.
Okay.
But you can definitely tell that Lambesis is putting some influence on this band off of this album and definitely the next one too. Lambesis from As I Lay Dying.
Yeah.
Still just feels weird though to say his name and then you start thinking about the things that are coming down the line. And you're like, rough. Yeah.
I didn't pay anyone to kill his wife. He did that. Okay. He can't ruin As I Lay Dying for me. He
No,
doesn't get
no,
to
no, no,
do
no,
that.
no, no. I know. I just think about him in general and just
Oh
that.
yeah,
I mean,
he's a piece of shit.
I still just listen to As I Lay Dying like crazy, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, dude, I love the guitar tones on this album, man. I love what they did there. The first one that always comes to mind though is the sound on City of Refuge, man. That dan dan
Oh,
dan.
yep,
Oh,
yep,
oh, oh, God. I'm like
yep.
I'm like Randy Marsh in the trailer at the at the
Ah,
quarantine.
ah.
Yeah, it's just so good, man. That's probably my favorite off the album. More Than Conquerors is great. Love. I always get like Welcome to Forever stuck in my head. Just him saying that over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Welcome to Forever.
this is definitely my favorite out of these three. I haven't listened to anything on the back half yet. I was waiting for the next episode. But definitely so far out of these three, this is definitely my favorite. With Violence coming in at a close second. But yeah, there's I don't feel like there's any low point at all. I don't feel like there's a dip at all on this album, you know. I'm guessing you concur after 14
Yeah,
years.
there's no yeah. I'm just like still rolling through these Revival America, like so
Yeah,
good, the guitar line in that.
yeah.
House of
Do you
Mourning,
think
like it just goes so hard all the way to the end of the album.
is this a peak though for them, or do they continue to climb throughout their discography?
I feel like they're still climbing.
I mean, here's the thing about it. I don't want to say peak as like it's a bad thing because I'm not saying it could be a bad thing, but I think that in some instances it's not a bad thing to peak and then just stay at that for the rest of your discography because that's consistency,
Yeah.
you know.
I I feel like this is the beginning of a consistent run for them.
Okay.
Um,
But you do feel like sooner or later they do take it up a notch.
Tough to say. It's been years since I listened to Death Will Reign, um, and Baptized in Filth also.
Well, we're gonna find out in the next
Yeah,
episode, I
so
guess.
we'll see. I mean,
Put a pin in that. Yeah.
I think at least Baptized in Filth was like a little bit better received than some of the others. I mean, the streaming numbers are a lot higher.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that felt like an album that everybody was talking about, but
Cool. Alrighty. Well, that is 2000. Just say 2009.
2009.
2009. Okay, this is interesting. 2009's Serpent Servant. I just okay, so Violence is 2010.
Yes. So they
Wow,
dude, they
that came
basically
quick.
had two in the chamber.
That's well, I mean, they kind of sound similar,
Yeah.
so I could
Yeah, I
see that.
remember There Will Be Violence coming out and being kind of confused. It was like they just put out Servant last
This
year.
can't be real. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
Hmm.
but
Chad Blackwell on drums would return to his home in Pensacola, Florida, and eventually attend the Atlanta Institute of Music. He would be replaced by former drummer Isaac Bueno on drums for touring support of their sophomore album. Now, Isaac would not be sticking around. He would eventually be replaced by Brandon Trahan on drums, formerly of Mirror of Dead Faces and ex Death Star X. With founding member Manny Contreras on guitar leaving the band, rhythm guitarist Corey Johnson would be left to fulfill both guitar spots on the next two albums before Manny's return. And that takes us to 2010's There Will Be Violence from Face Down Records, once again produced by Tim Lambesis and Daniel Castleman. This is the first album for Brandon Trahan on drums. And even though he's not with the band anymore, founding member Manny Contreras is credited with writing some of the music, which I think that kind of goes with what we were just saying is they probably already had this one in the chamber, if he had some writing credits on it. So at least
Yeah.
some of the songs. Um, New Review gave the album a perfect 5 out of 5 score and stated, quote, Impending Doom has found their niche in the metal market by skillfully balancing brutality and finesse. They've taken the lessons learned from previous albums and evolved into the band they were always meant to be. Songs on this album include Hell Breaks Loose, There Will Be Violence, Orphans, featuring Tim Lambesis of As I Lay Dying, Peace Illusion, The Great Fear, featuring Vincent Bennett of the Acacia Strain, Walking Through Fire, Love Has Risen, The Sun Is Mine, Children of Wrath, and the finale, Sweating Blood. So, kind of like what I said, Corey Johnson's by himself on this album, doing both guitar parts. Do you feel like there's any kind of dip there at all, or do you feel like it's still consistent?
It's still pretty consistent. They did a good job of filling it in. Um, while I don't like the move, you know, I would just like to see them wait maybe another 6 months to a year to put this out with somebody else, or maybe get Manny back at some point. But
Well, it's like at
um,
least like record the album real quick with them, and then just go on your way. If that's what
yeah,
you want to do. But I mean, because you're already getting writing credit, on some, so why not?
um, and it feels like they're building a little bit on the sound of Serpent Servant.
Mm.
We're getting like some random kind of solos and stuff going on in this album. I do like this one. It's different than Serpent Servant, but um feel like there's more like shrill high vocals in this one than there were
Yeah,
in the
there's
previous two.
there's times where I'm kind of like, I mean, Tim's on that one song, but there's times where I'm kind of like, is he on all these songs? Because Brooke is kind of sounding like him at times.
Yeah.
You know,
The
so there's more
intro
influence there. Feels
to
like.
Children of Wrath. Oh, that like guitar riff is just so dirty.
Dirty.
Um, yeah, I mean, this was one that. Okay, so I'm gonna make a comparison here, especially since we've been talking about Azalea dying. This is like listening to an ocean between us after Frail Words collapse. You know,
Yeah.
um, it's a great album, but it just doesn't check as many of the boxes for me as Serpent Servant does. That's a hard album to live up to, I feel like. Like that's a tough thing to come out of the gate with something that strong. It's like, where do you go? You know?
Well, we've always talked about that when you have those kind of landmark albums for your in your discography, the follow up is it's going to be break it or make it, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like they've.
The Davy Havoc quote. This is the
Yeah,
one that they will
exactly.
remember us
They're going to
by.
remember us by. I don't feel like they. I don't think they fell on their face. I mean, it's a good album, but I'm with you too. It's like it's good, but it just doesn't feel like it lives up to Serpent Servant, you know.
Yeah.
So that's tough. Um, yeah, it's just I just feel like there's more influence from SLA dying on this album. It's like the more they work with him, the more he puts his band into it. It feels like, um,
Yeah.
and top to bottom, I don't feel like personally, I don't feel like there's any like real dip. These two albums are definitely ones that I put on and I can listen to the whole album all the way through. Um, yeah, I just feel like I feel like a lot of my like before coming into this episode, a lot of my opinion on this band really hung on Nail Dead Risen. And I didn't really
Okay.
know because I think that was the only album, at least that I remember, that I really listened to them. And I just wasn't, like I said earlier, it just wasn't for me.
See, if
and I
I
think it was
that's
one of those
why
where it's just kind of like, I just kind of was like, yeah, it's not for me. And I just moved on.
that's why I felt like if you listen to Serpent Servant, that would be the one. If any of them were going to draw you in, I felt like that was going to
Yeah.
be the one.
Well, I'm into them now, man. That's for sure. Thanks to, Violence and Servant. So, yay, you and me. I'm on your team.
I win.
This round he wins. Anything else on There Will Be Violence, Josh?
Is he also doing some guest vocals on this album?
Who?
Because
Tim?
yeah.
He does vocals on Orphans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I can't remember what track it is, but I definitely like there was a part where I was
Yeah.
like this is
Well,
not
I think
right.
even like I think there's a couple of times on like The Great Fear with Vincent from Acacia Strain. I was like, wait, is that Tim
Okay.
again? So that's weird.
Oh, Acacia Strain. Oh,
Uh, oh boy. Yeah, this was an interesting block to start off the deep dive into Impending Doom. So we're off on a good start, man.
and
Interested to
I've
hear.
listened to all the others except for Sin and Doom and the Hellbent EP. So those will be kind of new for me.
Okay, cool, man. They're currently working on a new album. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, now you know. All right. As we close the book on part one of Impending Doom, we have a current lineup of four members: Brooke Reeves on vocals, Corey Johnson on guitar. Have I been saying this guy's name wrong the whole time? David on bass. All right. And Brandon Trahan on drums. All right. That's going to put a wrap on part one of Impending Doom, soon to be part two next week. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at IsSurvivedByPro for news and the latest episode postings, not just on this show, but our other shows as well. We have the History of the Cores After Hours podcast, where I sit down with my good friend and avid listener of this very podcast right here, Eric, and we talk about some of the bands that me and Josh have already discussed, but it's more of a chilled out, relaxed, vibing podcast. Yeah.
It's the
Josh is
fun
not
one.
allowed. Yeah. We actually just recorded 2 episodes today, so be on the lookout for 2 brand new episodes in the coming weeks on the bands Alexis on Fire and Comeback Kid. We also have the Red Right Hand podcast, which has covered all 6 seasons and a few episodes in between of the Peaky Blinders. And you also have the Throne of the Dragon podcast, which so far has covered season 1, soon to be season 2 of House of the Dragon. Also, while you're on Twitter, make sure to follow my co-host at Joshua Lynn Gary, right there. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and write us a comment on whatever podcast service you're using. And if you want to listen to us and see our smiling faces, head on over to YouTube. Just search Is Survived by Productions if you want to see that beautiful mustache on that man next to me. Look at that mustache. An elegant gentleman. Yes, a walrus, some may say. Get you a couple like straws or chopsticks. Oh boy. Yeah, head on over to our YouTube page, Is Survived by Productions. That'll have every episode from all of our shows. Subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up the video. We will see you in the next episode, the final installment of Impending Doom. We'll see you.